Ada Spear Side Sig is a grounded KO option, which Spear does not naturally have, and it's just super good. The hitbox is very generous. It covers in the air as well. If I make this Teska jump around, you're going to see it hits in the air with that upward angle, and of course it has that big distance in front of you. If I dash and use it, it covers half of this stage. The way that I'm going to do this, because there are so many legends, is I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the SIG, one key tip while using it, one key tip against it, and then maybe throw in an honorable mention. Keep in mind that SIGs are good for different reasons and in different situations, so ask me on a different day, maybe I give you a different choice, but for today, it's Ada Spear Side Sig. And while using it, you can actually GC to cover on the ground and slightly higher in the air like that, because this hitbox is so generous. So if you want some extra distance vertically, as well as maintaining that same horizontal distance, you can do something like that. And against it, you always want to be aware of this range. Remember, I said it can cover half the stage with a dash, so keep that in mind. Maybe play some Ada a little bit yourself just so you get a hang of this, and that way you know how to avoid it. It also doesn't hit directly stacked, and so that is also something to consider. For Ada, my honorable mention goes to this Blaster's End Sig. I have a whole video on this, but it is a lot of fun. Next up, we've got Arcadia's Spear Down Sig, which on its own doesn't really kill. It doesn't really do anything, but it is a setup tool, and this is really Arcadia's signature move. It's so good because it really doesn't have that many recovery frames. You can see you can just jump out right there, cover the ledge with this active hitbox. Even as you're jumping out, the hitbox is still there, and then of course you can combo it into a kill and everything like that. A lot of damage on that 33 damage true combo right there. One thing you want to consider while using it is that it doesn't give you a chase dodge. So let's say you're using this in twos or something, or you could be interrupted. You're not going to be able to quickly get out of there, so you do want to hit them and then go for the chase dodge to escape. One tip against it, a lot of the time you're not going to be able to punish it, so don't go for the punish on this move because that's what the Arcadia is waiting for. Go for the punish on what they're going to do next. I'm recording this later because I forgot my honorable mention. It's the Spear End Sig. An argument can be made, and honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, the argument should be made that this is her best Sig because it hits on the ground on Spear, which can't really kill on the ground. There's anti-airs, a lot of active frames that it kills it early, and it's also really good as a dodge punish. You can cover a lot of options there. Very good move. Anyway, back to past me. Artemis Lance Side Sig. This Sig is really a classic. It's a classic story of a Sig that used to kind of suck, and now it's really, really good ever since it got buffed. And Lance, another weapon that can't really kill on the ground all too easily. That's never really going to kill, so this, having that option, of course, the bounce back is super good. The hitbox is active. There's the big explosion at the very end. I'm sure you know that this move is very, very good. So a tip while using it is you can bait opponents into wanting to be on the ground by throwing out things like nairs, jump stairs, and then once they think they're safe on the ground, throw this out there, and you're going to be able to catch them as they're running around. One tip against it, it's kind of similar to the Arcadia one, but if you're not in a position to punish this, let's say you're in front of it, Artemis is going to jump backwards. So a lot of the time she's going to escape, she's going to escape punishment. So either you want to go above it, jump above it, because that way you won't get hit like this, or you go for the punish on what she's going to do next. And that's really a common tip that I like to give you guys, is that if you're struggling with Sig spam, you're struggling to punish a lot of moves, a lot of the time it's because you're going for a punish in a situation where you can't punish. So instead of that, focus on your next move. Sorry. Asuri Qatar Ensig is my pick for her best. It's kind of difficult. She has a lot of options that I could choose from, but this one just has so much utility, so much power, and you can cover a lot of dodges out of this Endlight. Endlight into recovery is not a true combo, so if your opponent has a dodge, a lot of the time you do want to go for these dodge reads, and this move covers a whole bunch of them because you can see this hitbox is extremely generous. You can use it to GC and counter edge guards. Very, very good. It's your cheese move. It's probably Asuri's biggest cheese move, along with the sword Ensig. And you can see you can track your opponent's movement and then interrupt from the diagonal angle right there. And what's nice about that diagonal, and this is my tip, is that while you're edge guarding, you don't need to position directly below them because you're going at this angle. You can just wait around here while they're going for the wall, and then that hitbox is going to be active all the way up there. And so my tip against this goes the same way. If you notice that the Asuri is just waiting this out, instead of going for the wall immediately, you can actually go for the hit on them as they're waiting right here. Maybe you even interrupt their dodge and you get an early gimp back. I'm just going to throw out this sword Ensig because I talked about it earlier. You can see the force of this move is ridiculous. This is my honorable mention. Be very careful about this move because it can completely cheese out a game. Azoth is very, very hard to choose, but I'm going to give it to this Axe Down Sig. This move just has a ton of force. You can see it killed right there. I mean, they were barely in orange. I just GC'd it up there, maybe barely in the red. And yeah, all that damage, 29 damage, plus this hitbox extension is super good, and it's just got a lot of range without moving you. You can pick up people like that. You can GC it right there. Very similar to the logic behind the Ada Spear Side Sig. It already has great horizontal range. You can give it even more vertical vertical range than it already has with this. You can use it as an anti-air where people are trying to land on the ground. Let's say they mix you up, they're floating above right here, and then they dodge this way. Well, if you're ready, you can go for an axe downlight quick, or you can go for that slow, catch their dodge, maybe continue the juggle or something like that. My main tip for this move, honestly, I think you can use it kind of sparingly because Azoth's other sig, like this for example, are so good at close range. People might want to play slightly further away, and if you don't use it all match, and then suddenly when they're in the red, you throw it out, it can completely catch them off guard. My main tip against it is be careful of the instant wake-ups. People a lot of the time like to go for this, or they like to go for down sig into downlight the moment you try and punish it. I mean, it is similar to what I've talked about in a couple of these past sigs, but especially on this move, people like to do this so much, so just be careful. Barraza is difficult because he has received a handful of nerfs on some of his iconic moves like Blaster's down sig, but yeah, this move, the axe end sig, it's still just as good. I mean, all of that reversal power in the hitbox, I didn't really show it off right there, but the hitbox does extend for quite a while. You can see right here, it's this entire loop that you're going around, so it's active for a good amount of frames. You can cover dodge in super well. A lot of the time people do like to dodge in against axe off stage because people are throwing out these or they're throwing out these, so you can be ready for that. Instead of going for like this falling sair or this rising sair, you wait for the dodge, go for this, and then you just steal a stock super early. Extreme amount of force. It's kind of ridiculous for a reversal sig, but yeah, you can see the force right there, and then axe you just edgeguard with something like a ground pound. So that's my tip. Be ready for the combo afterwards. You can throw this out, and then you want to clean up this kill 100% of the time because they don't have any options left. You just throw out one of those. You can also slide charge it off the stage, use it to GC recovery. And then against this move, you do really want to be careful about your dodge ins, especially off stage. It's much less threatening in the center of the stage, so you don't have to worry about it too much, although it still does a lot of damage. So these dodge ins, especially in the air off stage, you have to be careful about. And it also doesn't hit grounded, so that's a surefire way to avoid it. Something that may come as a surprise is that as you get higher and higher up the ranks, weapons like axe can actually struggle to kill sometimes because the sair is slow, the end light can be slower, maybe it doesn't kill for a very long time. So having a grounded and aerial option like this end sig is so good. And this range, look at this range. I mean, that just picked up from behind. I wasn't even trying to hit them, I was trying to demonstrate, and it still picked up. And then look at that hitbox. I mean, you can see why this move is good, right? Just a complete anti-air and the grounded kill option, like I said, and it's extremely quick. You can't really react to the startup. Also, it doesn't have a clear sound cue as it's beginning, and the force is also good. The damage is also good. I mean, 27, just a super solid option. I would say it is definitely underrated and overshadowed by a couple of Brynn's other moves, but I do think this is her strongest. It's just so good. My main tip for this move is the same both for and against it, which is learn the range. While using it, this might hit further than you expect, so you can actually use it from a further distance, which means you're even safer than previously thought. And against it, you want to learn the range because, of course, if you think you're okay here, or even if you're jumping in the area, like, oh, I'm totally fine up here. No, you're not. It's still going to clip at the very edge of it. Learn the range, and you'll be much better off. Bodvar's sword down sig has seen a couple of nerfs, but you can still see it's really good. That's some range right there. That's some. We'll get you back up just so I can use it again. Yeah, it has a lot of range, a lot of surprising range. You can see up here, it's still going to hit. I mean, the animation, it's a little bit difficult to tell, but that's a really good hitbox because if this Tesca is jumping up in the air, it's still going to hit from that angle. I mean, it's a little bit ridiculous given that it's a spike, but given that it's a spike, this range is going to help you so much because people are going to jump up from the ledge and then you can send them right down there. So that's my main tip for this move. Use it on the ledge, but also you can use it from right. You see where I'm standing, right? Like I am nowhere near the lip of the stage, but because people have to move inward while they're jumping off stage or jumping on stage from off stage, you can use it a lot further than you think. And so my main tip against it is honestly just be aware of this move even existing. I think a lot of people tend to just use it right here and then you're like, oh, this is pretty easy to avoid. But yeah, know that it hits back here and know that people can go for it, especially since sword is so good at just guarding people on the lip of the stage right here. People back up and end light, and so you think you can jump up and then people go for one of those and then suddenly you're in danger. Caspian gauntlet side zig. This move used to suck, but then it got a bunch of buffs, especially to its force. So you can see right now it is kind of a crazy move. It's a reversal signature, which means even if you're in a bad position, you can use it and put yourself in a good position, especially off stage like that. You just steal knockouts with this move. And because it's a gauntlet grounded killing option, gauntlet's another weapon that can sometimes struggle to hit kill on the ground. I mean, you can do like a downlight recovery, but that can be difficult. Also, downlight is not necessarily the safest move out there. Honestly, sometimes this side sig is safer than the light attack of a downlight. And also, you miss it, you can kind of instantly end light. My biggest tip for this move is honestly just to use it more. I feel like a lot of Caspian players, they'll go for this side sig a lot, which, you know, honorable mention this one because it's super good as well. But this one kind of flies under the radar. This is another move that I've made an entire video about out because I feel like for the longest time it was extremely underrated. Maybe not so much anymore as people are starting to learn about it, but yeah, this Sig, the force is just ridiculous. It's not the flashiest move out there, so sometimes if you're playing against it, it doesn't feel like it's a big threat, but my biggest tip against it is always be aware because it can deal 29 damage every single time it hits you, and that racks up very, very quickly. Punishing it, you can punish it from above pretty well. Also, gauntlets don't have the most range after using it, so if you have a weapon like lance, you can out-prioritize. Spear, you can out-prioritize. But yeah, just be aware of this. It exists. Cassidy's hammer and sig. I mean, this is just the classic. This is her signature move, but why is it so good? Well, number one, very, very fast. Number two, not a lot of recovery frames. And number three, it covers an angle that hammer has a lot of trouble hitting. On top of that, it covers the angle with just a suction. I mean, it just completely, yeah, look at that. That probably shouldn't have hit, and yet it still does because that hitbox is so generous. The main downside about this move is it doesn't kill the earliest. You can see right there, even though they're on the red, even though this is a small Brawlhaven, it didn't kill, it took one more. But that, I mean, yeah, it doesn't really matter all too much because it's essentially another light attack on one of the slower weapons in the game. Main tip for it, I mean, if someone's trying to approach you from above, this is the perfect option. It is one of the best anti-airs in the game, and it's a heavy attack. Main tip against it is try not to get frustrated. Cassidys are going to throw this out a lot, and you're not going to be able to punish it all the time because, like I said, it essentially is another light attack, and you can't punish every light attack in the game, so sometimes you won't be able to. Cut your losses, don't fall into the sunk cost fallacy, keep your head up, you got this. Cross has been subject to a handful of nerfs on his SIGs recently, which honestly, well deserved. They killed incredibly early, but still, this Gauntlet end SIG is incredible. It doesn't hit on the ground, as you can see right there, so that is the main downside. If you're trying to avoid it, don't jump in the air all willy-nilly. That's my main tip against it. My main tip for it is you can use it in a lot of awkward positions or back up and then use it instantly because you do move forward a little bit. Why is this move so good? I mean, you could see it. It just kills extremely early. Not as early as it used to, but still very, very early, and it's quick, it's fast. You can't really react to the startup. You can react to it afterwards, but keep in mind, the cross can instantly endlight as they land on the ground, so if you're trying to punish it, be careful of something like this. As they hold it for longer, they're going to go higher, so also be careful of that. But yeah, it's just a really, really good move. I feel like I don't need to talk about it too much because it is super straightforward. Just keep in mind this hitbox as well, very, very generous. It's going to be difficult to clash against this move just because that stretches out so far forward, so don't think about that too much, I don't think, especially because it's also a SIG. SIGs take priority in those anyway. Just be careful. Just be very, very careful. If you're clocking into the light orange, into the early red, especially as you're towards the edge of a stage, just keep your eyes open. Diana's a little difficult, and I'm going to need an honorable mention because these two SIGs kind of go hand in hand, but that end SIG right there is my pick for her best SIG. You could see if you hit it off stage, it just spikes people downward, and Bow is a weapon that's so good at controlling this grounded space with these sidelights, with these endlights, with these downlights, and so having an option where people want to, oh my god, where people want to jump above it, you can just cover that super, super well with this active hitbox. I mean, look at these hitboxes, look at these active frames. That is very, very generous, and then of course you see the offstage power of that. The reason why this goes hand in hand with the other SIG, which is the side SIG, the honorable mention, is because of the dodge power, or the dodge coverage power. Out of a sidelight, you can go for one of these, or you could go for one of these, and you're essentially covering pretty much every dodge that the opponent has to offer. Not every single dodge, not every single option, but it's enough to be such a dramatic threat that people are going to be scared. So that's my main tip for it. Also, downlight into end SIG is sometimes a pretty good string to go for. If you hit at the very last frames of this downlight, I'm pretty sure you can almost combo it. I don't think it's a true combo, but it's close enough to where if your opponent doesn't have a dodge, it is potentially worth going for. And my main tip against it is it doesn't jump the highest. So if you are trying to avoid this move, you could go way, way above it. Just be careful about Bow trying to cover your landings with stuff like this. But yeah, that is a way to avoid it, is you're just going way above. Dusk is an extremely underrated character, in big part because of his SIGs, and his SIGs are super, super strong now. I might give it to the side SIG, I might give it to the down SIG, I'm not really sure. You know, I'm going to give it to the side SIG today. Ask me on a different day once again. Dusk, it's just super, super fast. I think the main thing that holds me back, or that used to hold me back about this side SIG, is I thought that sidelight covered the same area, so it wasn't really necessary. But I think having this option as a potential threat is super, super good, especially because something like a sidelight will move your hitbox or hurtbox in a different way than this side SIG. You can hold it in place, and it's also just a 1-2 punch. If you hold it a little bit longer, you can get just that additional point of damage while still keeping them in stun. Very, very strong. Honorable mention could go to this down sig. Honestly, it could go to any of these sigs. This spear side sig is also super fast. If you're trying to play against this move, I think a lot of the positions that Dusks will use them is in a position where maybe they're not at risk of getting hit, but it's a read, and so they'll throw this out and they'll kind of be safe because they can cover with this Endlight super well. Orb Endlight is one of the best moves in the entire game to cover yourself after you whiff, so definitely be careful for that. The main tip for using it is it gets a lot of boost from dash impulse. So if you just use it in one place, you're not really moving all that much. But if you dash into it, the burst of speed is so dramatic that it just completely changes how you can use this sig, and also that little hold thing that I mentioned earlier. Just be careful not to hold it too long, because then then your opponent might be able to, oh my god, then your opponent might be able to dodge it like that. So just enough time so that they can't, but you're also still getting that additional boost of damage and force. Ember's bow end sig, it's like a top 3 sig in the entire game, so of course I gotta choose it right here. You can see right there the hitbox, it covers on the ground, it covers in the air. Look at this hitbox, look how far I am. Okay, I'm gonna use it right here, and then look at how far this covers forward and vertically. I'm on the very edge of the stage. Look at that. Look at that. It's just a complete anti-approach option. If someone's trying to fall down, yeah, you have this end light to cover, and then you have, like, what was this? How did that hit? How did that hit? You see what I'm saying? Hitbox is extremely good, and on a weapon like bow that I mentioned earlier, bow just has a lot of control, so having a sig that boosts your control even more, this is a 10 out of 10 signature. Yeah, if you're an Ember player and you're not using it that much, I mean, maybe don't use it all the time, because then people will be ready for it, but use it in positions where it's good, which is a lot of positions. Like out of a sidelight, for example, you can cover a lot of dodges because it hits on the ground and in the air. Main tip against it is not blow all of your options while trying to avoid it. What can happen a lot of the time when there's weapons like bow that are super scary with anti-airs, and then sigs that are super scary with anti-airs, is people will preemptively jump, and they'll use all of their options to try and jump away. They're like, oh, I don't want to land on the ground, because what if they use this? And then they give their opponent an easier time killing them, because then they don't have to read you, all they have to do is time it. So mix up your landings, that's the main tip. Ezio Orb End Sig is still in contention for the best Orb Sig in the entire game. After Raptor came out, maybe it's a little bit of a different conversation, but this move is extremely good. It's just so fast. I mean, you really cannot react to the startup, and then the hitbox is incredibly generous, and very good on the ledge especially too, because Orb is another weapon that's very good at covering the ledge like that. If they jump up, they try to come back without getting hit by this sidelight, they're gonna get hit by the End Sig. Speaking of sidelight, you can actually combo this sidelight into End Sig. If they don't have a dodge, this is a guarantee. They cannot escape it, they cannot jump out of it, so that's extremely good because it's going to kill way earlier than an Orb Sidelight Sarah would, especially after the Sarah nerfs. So Sarah getting nerfed actually boosts this weapon's efficacy because it makes that combo even more lethal, or string, I should say, not necessarily a combo. One main tip against this, it doesn't hit on the ground, and so if you want to avoid it, you can be on the ground. One main tip while using it, you can actually use this to GC, counter an edge guard, something like that. If someone's guarding you on the lip of the stage, you can use this to hit them through it. So it's an additional option to just get you out of danger. Very strong, and it doesn't have a lot of recovery frames. I have a feeling like this move is going to get nerfed eventually, so maybe that won't be the case. But yeah, you can just use it and then kind of instantly get out of it in the end light or whatever you want to do. On the trend of very good end sigs, it's Fate's Orb End Sig. I mean, this move is just the classic. This has been Fate's staple since she was released. It's extremely good. It doesn't hit grounded like that Ezio Orb End Sig, but this jump height that you get makes it very difficult to punish. My main tip for it is you can also sidelight into End Sig if they don't have a dodge. The main thing about this move is it doesn't have the horizontal distance that some of the other End Sigs in the game have, but the vertical height that you get is ridiculous. This is going to hit not 1, not 2, but 2.5 jump heights because you yourself are also jumping up. I mean, I can't necessarily do this the easiest. If I make this opponent jump up, maybe we could see it right there, but yeah, you're just going to hit so high because of this. I mean, look at that. I pre-fired that so early and it's still hitting at the top of it. Main tip against it, if you're in the red, be very careful about jumping against Fate, because this move, it's so fast, it's extremely difficult to react to, it's extremely difficult to punish because she also jumps and then she can just jump away, she can dodge away, whatever she wants to do. Yeah, just be very hyper aware. Gnash is another character that's pretty difficult to decide. I'm gonna give it to the hammer side sig just because of this utility. I mean, look at the range of this hitbox. This is kind of insane, and another one of those moves where because it hits so low, you can GC it and then still cover people and then still cover the air. I'm gonna set this bot lot to jump, and you can see exactly how high this hits up, because it is kind of crazy, and you can kind of tell by the animation. But yeah, this hitbox it's almost like an ancient old Brawlhalla beta hitbox. One tip for this side sig is you'll notice if I use it, I move forward, so you can actually kind of use it like a retreating sig. Think something like Azoth bow down sig, where he moves back and then does a sig. If you dash back and then use it, you're gonna dash back and then forward, and so it's gonna have the same effect as one of those reversal signatures. Let's see, someone's trying to dodge in on stage. You can use this and then cover that area as if you're retreating, and then you can also just go forward with it if you wanted to as well. So it has the best of both worlds there. One main tip against it is it is very deceiving. It does not have many recovery frames at all. A lot of people can just instantly stomp, or they can instantly go for an end light and then hammer. End light, of course, is so fast that if you're trying to punish it, let's see, it doesn't hit stacked here, but then you can just go for something like that right away. So be very careful of their instant wake up options. Honorable mention is going to spear end sig, because it does hit on the ground. Surprisingly, this is a massive anti-air and it hits on the ground. And then just look at this hitbox. I think this is all I need to say. Yeah. Good move. Speaking of spear sigs that hit on the ground, this one is a little bit of a sleeper. Hattori's spear side sig is deceptively good, and the reason why it's deceptively good is because she plants the spear before going forward. If you use it like this, yeah, you can hit with the very edge of your legs, and that's fine, but she actually plants this spear on the ground as the first hitbox, and that makes it so you can actually anti-air with this move. You can hit people in the air well above the ground like that, and that also means you can GC it. Of course, any hitbox extension that's vertical, that's good. You can use it on the ground, and then you can hit people from the ground right there. And it's also just very quick. It makes sense with Hattori's archetype. It's a very ninja-like move, but yeah, it's great. Spear can't really kill on the ground all too well, so any option like this is going to be fantastic. My main tip for it is, like I mentioned earlier, be aware that this hits in the air, and you can use it in more situations than you thought previously possible. My main tip against it is be aware that it can hit in the air, because you can get hit in more situations than you thought previously possible. Isaiah's Blaster's end sig is another move that I've made an entire dedicated video towards. Honestly, I can make one of those for probably every single character in the game. Everyone has a sig that has some nice mechanics that most people may not know about, but the reason why this is so good is also the reason why people don't think it's good, ironically. They look at this hitbox and they see, oh, it's only a bunch of tiny little dots, this move must suck. But you know what move is also a bunch of tiny little dots? This. I guess it's not as tiny, but you can still see the same idea and think about how strong, how oppressive bow end light is. This is essentially bow end light, but as a sig on a weapon that can't cover this angle normally. Look how high this hits up, and it's so fast. It's a light attack, like I mentioned. You can't really punish this very easily, and yeah, it's just extremely good. Like I said, I have an entire video dedicated to just this move. It is that good. So if you're an Isaiah player, definitely incorporate this into your play more. If you're against an Isaiah, be careful. Be careful of this 45-degree angle. Normally against guns, that is a safe angle to approach. Against Isaiah, not so much. Honorable mention is going to the side sig, because it got some buffs a couple years ago where it has almost no recovery frames. This move is incredibly powerful, and there's not a lot of Isaiah players out there, so people don't really necessarily know that you can't really punish this move. But yeah, very good. Jaeyun's got a handful to pick from, but I'm gonna say it's this greatsword end sig. This is another one of these anti-airs that also has a hitbox on the ground, and this is another one of these anti-airs that is just a complete force field around you. This sig got nerfed a handful of times, and it's still just so good. And it's also a move that, like, in a vacuum, this would be a 10 out of 10 sig, but it's not in a vacuum. It's on greatsword. You can use this out of strings. You can cover dodges with this move, which is, I mean, it's just fantastic. And if someone's trying to dodge up, for example, a lot of the time, yeah, you can go for these 50-50s like this, but let's say you don't want to. Let's say you just want to use this right away. You can do something like that. And end light into an end sig is a great read. And so my main tip for using this move is to incorporate it into your dodge strings, into your punishes, and then also you can use it as a backdash and just cover an angle like this. It is pretty safe if you use it from the correct range, or if you're using it as a pure anti-air. Because of this hitbox, it's so big, you can use it early and then just cover that space. My main tip against it is that you can be vulnerable in front while using it. You do have this big range, but then the moment that's over, you're completely vulnerable from in front or from directly horizontally. So that's the main thing, but in general, this move can be very difficult to contest. So just be careful. I had a lot of trouble with Jhala. I'm going to give this the honorable mention because you do have this ability to combo, but then also the axe end sig, it's just super good. It kills so early, but I think I'm just gonna give it to the sword down sig. This has been my favorite move on Jhala for years, and it's still just so you can see the 28 base damage. It's so fast. This is another light attack on the sword, and the hitbox is great. It's fantastic. You can cover people's dodges, you can cover people's edge guards, you can, yeah, I mean, you can cover people's landings as well. Another one of those things that I used to think that was a kind of a downside because you can already cover that area, but because you just have it in such a beefed up version, it kind of makes up for it. And yeah, you can see the force, the power, the speed. My main thing for this move, my main tip for this move is incorporate it into your play if you haven't already. This is another one of those moves that's like a light attack, and so you can kind of think about it that way. Think about it like another option in your kit rather than a sig to only go for if people are in the red or something like that. My main tip against it is that it doesn't have the most amount of vertical range. It does have a good amount, but it's not the most amount, so if you're worried about this sig, you can punish them from above. Ask me a couple years ago, and I'd probably say it's Scythe down sig because that was like the only good sig that he had. Jiro has gotten so mega buff though that sword side sig is one of the best sigs in the game. This force is just ridiculous, and you can still do some strings where you go like this, you cover a dodge, and then they just die super early. This move got beefed up like crazy in the force department, and because it already had a good hitbox, it's just so strong. My main tip for this move is incorporate this into your dodge punishes because you can just completely steal out a kill that you normally wouldn't have been able to get otherwise. My main tip against it is that if you are somewhat in the air with these downlight into NSIG combos, let's see if I can get a correct jump here, or downlight into side sig, excuse me, you can jump out of it. So be aware of those, be aware of these situations, because a lot of the time people will try to go for these types of punishes and you can escape it. Just sometimes the hitbox can be kind of weird, it's like you can't really avoid it. But unless they do it perfectly with the perfect position, good timing on a jump can save your life. Kai is a little bit difficult. A bunch of her moves have been nerfed recently, but I still do think it is this bow NSIG. This move it just travels the stage so fast. It has so many active frames. It has a surprising amount of force given Kai's low strength archetype and low strength character. But yeah, this move, as long as you're not like right here and trying to use it, it's really good because this distance, this speed is fantastic, and you can use it out of a sidelight to string. Someone's trying to avoid the sideline to downlight combo, you cover with that. Yeah, it's a very good move, and it can just snipe out options when you least expect it. My main tip for it is primarily to learn this range, learn where the dead zones are, because once you do that, all of the options that are available to you will suddenly just leap out, and you'll be like, oh my god, this is the perfect option to use right here. If you try to downlight into NSIG, right, this is not going to work, but then if I maybe like do a backup, and then I do one of these, and then I do one of these, and then you know what I'm saying? Main tip against it is this is way faster than the side sig, so if you're worried about getting hit by a sig, be careful about this one and don't jump, whereas you can probably react sometimes to this side sig as long as you're ready for it, as opposed to this, which is just super quick. So if you got to be worried about one of them, maybe better to be worried about this than this. It's the plank. I like the plank. I'm gonna have to go with the gauntlet side sig. Okay, sorry. This is just the classic move, the classic Koji move. The hitbox, as you do it on the ground, it extends very far. It also extends downward, so if someone's trying to recover back on the stage. And then the second hit of this is so nice because it covers all of this area. And then I pressed the wrong button there, and I don't know how to get out of this. Main tip for it, I mean, you probably already do this to a certain extent, but if someone's trying to aggress onto you, you can spot dodge, then use it as a GC to counterattack them. Very strong. And then, of course, like I mentioned, you can use it to kind of cover the lip of the stage right here pretty perfectly. Main tip against it is pay attention to the Koji's movement. A lot of the time people tend to go for the same type of movement right before they're about to use it. They're going like this, or they're going like, they're just waiting in the air, and then they're, oh, I'm gonna use it right there. So pay attention, see when people tend to like to use it, and then you can read it much easier and then punish it much cleaner. All right, for real this time, I'm gonna say it's the gauntlet side sig on core. I feel like this move is very deceptively strong. There's some moves in core's kit that's more obviously strong, like this gauntlet down sig has a giant animation, and then like this gauntlet end sig just sends you flying off the map. Also has this hidden little mechanic there, hidden boss there, whatever it's called, honorable mention. But I'm gonna give it to the side sig just because of reliability. This move has a shocking amount of force. Yeah, as you can see, and this extension in front of you is just so reliable. It picks up where you think it's not going to pick up, and the range, I mean, it's also a lot harder to tell on core itself, or core himself, rather than, let me show you, this is weird. Instead of extending your whole arm, you're only extending a hand, and it's a little bit harder to see. Also, if you're on, what is it, TOF, it gets a little bit wonky. Anyway, there's some animations there. Of course, a lot of crossovers, but yeah, this move is extremely strong, and if you're not using it already, then you definitely should incorporate it. My main tip is that just give me something that looks good. Perfect. My main tip for it is that you can actually kind of use it as a little bit of an anti-air or maybe a landing read is a better way to describe it, because it has a little bit of that vertical extension. You can see it's not on the ground. It's not hitting on the ground. It's still in the air. And because Brawlhalla's hurtboxes are circles, even if it only clips the leg, it's going to be enough to still hit, still connect, and still go through with this final animation. So yeah, you can use it to cover people's landings very, very well, especially because of this extension. Main tip against it is to know its max range out of a dash, kind of similar to that Ada Spear side sig. It's going to hit all the way halfway across the entire stage if someone uses it out of a dash. So just because you're here doesn't mean you're safe. Lin Fei, it's got to be the cannon end sig. This is just such a unique move. It's another one of those moves that's a light attack. It doesn't really kill super early like a sig would, but it's just so special because it is a light attack. Also, if you play soccer, you're going to get that additional voice line, so you get the annoyance points bonus against your opponent. This just opens up an entire world of options for cannon that you wouldn't have otherwise, and clearly I need it because I can't even hit this recovery. Thank you. My main tip for it, like a handful of these have been, is the same as my main tip against it. Think about it like a light attack. This is a light attack. So in your mind, while you're using it, this is an additional option to go for in Cannon's kit. And when you're trying to punish it, think about it like a light attack. Don't think about it like trying to punish a heavy attack and, oh, you have all the time in the world. No, this is super, super fast. I mean, it fits her archetype, so you can kind of think about it like that. But yeah, if you're not in position, it's just like missing an end light. Be careful. Lucien's a bit difficult because this move recently got buffed, but I still do want to give it to the side sig out of pure reliability. This move is definitely the down sig, higher risk, higher reward. The side sig, though, it's a grounded killing option on a weapon that really does struggle to kill on the ground. Katars, I mean, downlight sending nowhere, endlight sending nowhere, sidelight sending nowhere, so they're all just set up tools. And you can set up into this move a sidelight into a dash side sig when they're in the red, for example, going for a dodge down punish like this, and then the dash impulse that you get is also fantastic. Kind of difficult to punish, not the easiest in the world, and then this second hit up in the air can catch people a little bit higher than you might think. It's not the highest, but you still get a good amount of range on this uppercut, so that's also great. Yeah, it's just so reliable, and it is extremely fast. Now, I wouldn't say this move is like a light attack because it can be punished like a heavy attack. There's a lot of active frames and all that, but its startup is certainly a light attack. You are not reacting to the start of this move. It is so quick, and so out of a dash, my main tip for it is your opponents won't be able to react to the start of it. So think about this like a high-risk light attack. Think about it like I don't know, like an Axair, for example, that you have access to. Actually, that's not a good example, because Axair is like slower than this to start up. Just incorporating this into your play and punishing landings if someone doesn't have a dodge, or if you have a movement read or something like that, a dash-in movement read. Main tip against it is because the speed is so fast that it has pretty much no startup, then you have to know the range of this move. Because if it's too close, you're not going to be ready for it, and then you're just going to get hit because you're not going to react to that startup. But if you do know the range, the Lucien is this far away, they're not going to be able to hit you with it. Okay, maybe that range, but that range right there, they're not going to be able to hit you with it, so you don't have to be nearly as worried as you do when you're up close. For some reason, Magyar gets a bad rap with their signatures. I honestly don't really know why. They're really, really good, especially this greatsword down sig. This move is extremely fast. This is a retreating signature, so if someone's trying to approach you, you can retreat like this. And part of why I think this move is really, really good is because greatsword's ground and control is very powerful. So a lot of the time, people will try and you'll go for an endlight and then you'll spot dodge, and people will get used to that. So they'll try to punish you where you're standing because a lot of the time you can get stuck. But a move that changes where you're standing and then instantly just look at this, look at this, look at this. It's like a Onyx cannon side sig. To be honest with you, that move is also really, really good. Yeah, this sig is great. This sig is great, and you can cover the ledge like that with a lot of active frames. And because you're backing up, you're more safe than you would be otherwise. Honorable mention goes to this end sig because that kills super early. It's also one of the coolest animations in the entire game. Then you can use it to recover back on stage, GC back on stage. One tip, I know I'm good, I'm all over the place here. One tip against this down sig is that it does have a decent amount of recovery frames, but the way that you're going to try to punish this is from above because this backs up. But greatsword can kind of counter and contest that above approach. Let's say you evade it from the air and then are going to try to punish it. I mean, maybe you're not evading it from the air. That's another bonus to the hitbox. But yeah, you're trying to back up. You're trying to go in the air. The enemy Magyar can do something like this, right? Where you're jumping up and then they instantly just cover themselves with this end light as you're approaching. So yeah, be careful about that. Be careful about those end lights. And honestly, just play some Magyar yourself. I mean, it's not like you're going to get a lot of practice in the queue against a ton of them and know the timing and everything. But if you play a couple games, you'll get the hang of it. We've got another greatsword down sig right here. The Mako greatsword down sig. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can see it. This sig is insane. Look at this hitbox. Look at this hitbox extension. It is a two-part sig, so as you're charging it, it does have an active hitbox. And then if they run into it, you can release it at any time, and then it'll finish with that second hit. And that means main tip number one is that you can use it with something like that, where it connects with someone trying to recover. We'll see if I can actually do this right here. Someone trying to recover back to the stage. You can interrupt their recovery because it does have priority below like that. And then, yeah, and then you can just release and send them even further off stage, which Greatsword is great at covering because they have a move like Sarah, they have moves like Dare. Very, very strong. The main thing about this move is that you are vulnerable from above, so that's the main tip against it. You can punish it from directly above. Just be careful about trying to punish it jumping in horizontally, because as you saw when I first hit this move, it does have a little bit of a burst outward when it finishes. You can see right here, the very last hitbox is going to jump up a little bit, so if you're far away, be a little bit careful about how you're jumping in, and try not to be too close when Mako actually plunges the sword into the ground, because as she does that, there's going to be a big burst right next to her. So yeah, be careful about that, but you can punish it from directly above, so that's always nice. Mirage, another one of these characters that's super hard to choose. I'm going to give it to the Spear down sig just because this move, it's super, super fast and it's on the ground, and Spear can't really kill on the ground. But don't be mistaken, moves like this Scythe end sig are also 10 out of 10 moves. I'm just picking the Spear down sig today. Spear side sig is also really great. Anyway, this move, part of what makes it really good is it's super good at punishing dodges because it has all of those active frames. All of these spears that get sent out, every single one is a hitbox. So it's not just an illusion or anything, a visual illusion. Every single one of these can hit. So it's just this entire force field around you, and you can see they're active for a good amount of time, and then it can also kill directly upward off the top, which means they're going to kill even earlier than it would otherwise. Just an extremely good move. Main tip for it is incorporate this into your play. Incorporate this into your sidelight punishes. For example, if you're reading an opponent that likes to dodge into the ground, down sig. Make them regret it. Main tip against it is just be very, very careful about playing stacked against a Mirage. If you're in the red and they're just, I don't know, dashing back and forth, or maybe they're retreating to the ledge of the stage and just waiting for you to whiff a Sarah or something, be very careful, because likely they're going for this. Mordex, another character, it's hard to choose. I think I do want to give it to the classic though. The end sig on Scythe, and part of why is because this move just covers so much, especially out of Sidelight. You can use this move, this is my main tip for it, to cover a ton of dodges. You can cover a jump. If they don't have a dodge, Sidelight into Ensig, a fantastic string to kill earlier than you would otherwise. You can use it to cover yourself if someone's trying to edge guard you. Look at this hitbox extension. I mean, there's good reason why this move has been nerfed like a billion times, but it's still so good just because the fundamental design of it makes it very good. You can see they're jumping out right there. My timing isn't the greatest, but yeah, if you hit it with the right kind of sidelight, they're not going to be able to escape that. It is really hard. I mean, Mordex has so many good sigs, like this side down sig, extremely underrated, and then covering like that, and side sig, of course, all that range. But the confidence, I guess, is the main thing. I don't know. I always just feel so confident that I'm able to take a stock or make a comeback and get an early knockout because of this end sig. Main tip against it is check out this recovery time. Because he jumps in the air, it's going to be hard to punish. It's going to be difficult. Maybe they just dash outward, or maybe they jump dodge or something. So be very careful, especially trying to use your dodge to get in and punish this move, because that is exactly what Scythe wants to do. Learn the recovery frames, learn to jump outward out of this, because if they hit the sidelight a little bit far away, this jump outward might save your life. It might not, you know, depending on the timing, depending on the positioning, but if they do hit the sidelight close, you're not going to be able to get out of it like that. If they hit the sidelight far away, you will be able to. It's going to be really hard to tell in the moment, but practice jumping away if you know they're going to go for it, and it might just save your life. Munin, bow, side sig. This move, in my opinion, is one of the most overtuned sigs in the entire game. If Munin does pick up popularity, I feel like this move will inevitably get nerfed, but you can see it has utility on stage because then it hits horizontally. It has utility off stage. You can spike with it. It's a nice little jump. You can jump back on the stage. You can cover the wall. It has a wall version. Yeah, not a lot of active frames. Very good hitbox. Sometimes it drops, apparently. But yeah, it's just like an additional jump, an additional distance, and it's extremely difficult to punish. And it also has an audio cue, so people can get annoyed. It has the annoyance bonus if you want that. Yeah, just super good. The one downside that it does have is technically it is a projectile, so you can't chase dodge out of it, but that's not a huge deal. Like really not a huge deal at all. Only in a situation maybe where like trying to GC recovery and you don't have any distance left, then don't do that, but otherwise it's so good. Main tip for it is learn the range, learn the position, learn when you're safe, because then you're just able to throw it out so much more than you would otherwise. Opponents are not really going to be able to punish this very effectively as long as you know the distance pretty well. So main tip against it is this staff doesn't actually have a hitbox. The only thing that has a hitbox are the arrows once she fires them. So don't be afraid of getting hit in the air by this. But yeah, do be afraid of getting hit in the air as she's shooting them downward, because it does have a downward hitbox that does hit people jumping. Be careful out there, gamers. This is a scary one. Queen Nai Enzu. This move might be the best spear sig in the game. I don't know. It's hard to tell, but it's so so good. First of all, it's extremely fast on a character that is extremely slow, so that's a big bonus. It hits on the ground, as you can see. It hits in the air very high up, as you can see. It does 29 damage, as you can see. It kills, as you can see, and you can string it out of a downlight. It's just got everything. This is the perfect spear sig, and it fits very well into Nai's kit because she has a lot of zoning moves. She has this, and then you're like, oh, I'm gonna jump above to hit that. No, you're not. Really, I cannot overstate this enough. This is the perfect spear sig, and it can cover dodges. You can go for a sidelight into end sig, and yeah, this is so good. So if you're not using it as a Nai player, then 100% learn the range, learn the speed. This is another one of those moves that is kind of like a light attack. I mean, it's so fast, and the active frames are great. And on a character like Nai, I must reiterate, being this fast on a character this slow is so powerful. Main tip against it is be careful about these active frames. You might think that you're safe to land because she used it and it was a little while ago, but no, it has a really long active period given how fast the startup is. So yeah, it can still hit you like that, for example, as you're landing. They can use it preemptively, and using it preemptively means it's safer. If you want an additional tip as a Nai player, you can use it a little preemptively because of the active frames, which means you might not get punished as much, and it's very good. This sig terrifies me. Nyx does have the cheese sig with the blaster's end sig, but I think I'm actually going to give it to the other end sig, the scythe end sig. This move, it's very deceptively strong. You can see the speed at which you hit this super double jump height area. Most anti-airs only hit single jump height, especially at that speed. This one is far and away a double jump height. I mean, you can see it's almost a 2.5, and it's so fast, and the animation also isn't extremely obvious. It's not like she's doing a big Fate jump or anything like that. It's just a little boop, and then it has that active hitbox out there. So main tip for it is learn this range, because this is one of the best tools in your kit. Scythe controls so much space on the ground, so people are gonna want to jump, and you can catch them with this. It's not a sig that you only have to use in the red. You can use it at all health ranges. You can use it to cover jumps and landings and everything. And main tip against it is know exactly where it hits, because even though it does have really good range, it is very centralized to this specific area. So if you're directly above Nyx, you don't have to worry about it unless they're going for a pivot or something like that, like one of these. But in that case, she's going to be out of position, and then you can gain stage control. So being directly above it is okay. Of course, being on the ground is okay. And if you're really scared of it, both of these sigs on the ground are reactable. This one, not so much. So if you're scared about any sig, maybe it's best to be scared of this one, because if worse comes to worse, you might actually be able to dodge these. Onyx is hard. There's a few I can pick from, but I think I'm still going to give it to this cannon side sig. I believe that's probably what I gave it in all of these past videos that I've had. Maybe it was gauntlet down sig for a little bit, or cannon end sig. Both of those are fair enough honorable mentions, but this move is just so good. I mean, the range, the vertical range, look at this explosion range, right? This is going to hit people very far up, and because you have all of that horizontal distance as well, covering people that are trying to come back from the ledge is going to be where it really shines. And then because it hits horizontally, it's going to kill earlier if you're close. I mean, look at that. It's going to kill earlier if they're close to the ledge. So it's like the perfect sig. It really is. It's good exactly where you want it to be good. Main tip for it, I mean, if you use it even right here, you're going to be able to hit people on the ledge. So learn the range, honestly, for this sig more than most, because it's further than you think, and the reward you get out of it is insane. And because of that, main tip against it is gonna be the same thing. Learn this range, and especially as you learn the range, you're also gonna learn the range at which you can punish it, because right here, for example, if they use it, yeah, it's not going to hit you, but you also might not be able to punish it, because then they can just end light right away. The times that it's going to be safe to go for this punish directly are going to be if you're already in the air as she's using it like this, because otherwise from this distance it's going to be very difficult. I mean, even right there it hit. And also this dash distance, you always have to keep an eye out, especially when you're off stage. I can't remember if in the past I gave it to this down sig. This is one of the most underrated sigs in the entire game. It's actually extremely good, even if it doesn't look like that. But I think I can't deny right now that Spear Down Sig is just so good. Its hitbox, these active frames, the damage, the utility, the capabilities, the reversal power, it's got everything. It's got everything you want in a signature, and it's on Spear, which once again struggles to kill on the ground, so anything that can kill on the ground is great. My main tip for this move is you can put yourself in positions that Spear typically might not like, and then you can just reap a giant reward out of it, covering dodge ins, covering dodge outs. I mean, yeah, just moving around, and you can kind of think about it like you have all of the options that you get out of Spear Nair, but suddenly you're on the ground, and you can do that too with the down sig. Main tip against it is as you're trying to punish it, realize that it has a lot of active frames that continue spinning. I think what happens to a lot of people is, let's say they don't get hit by this initial read, maybe the Orion's off, and they're like, oh, I can just punish it, and then they get hit by the very end like that. It's still active, so be very aware of that as you're rushing in. It's not an unpunishable move by any means, but the window to punish it might be smaller than you think. So keep that in mind. I know it's very difficult. Petra Gauntlet Ensig. I've sung the praises of this move many a time, and it's for good reason. It's extremely fast. It's an anti-air that hits on the ground like a bunch of them in this video. You can see there's kind of a trend that those tend to be very, very good. And on top of that, it's on gauntlets, which means you have a bunch of options. Like, this covers so many of these dodges. Let's say they're trying to dodge to the right, you can hit that. Let's say they're trying to dodge up right, which is one of the hardest to hit because the double sidelight often doesn't hit there. It's not a problem. It's honestly one of the best places to hit this move. Down right, yeah, maybe you're not gonna get that. Just kidding. Yes, you are. This covers all of the horizontal options in the direction that you're facing. It's extremely good. And the honorable mention might go to this side sig. It might go to something else. I don't really know. This move used to be a lot better, but now it has a lot more recovery frames. Don't get me wrong. It's still not that many. But I do think that this N-Sig overtakes it. It overshadows it now that the side sig has received some of those nerfs. Main tip for it is to incorporate it into situations where a side sig is just barely not enough to hit, or maybe a side sig is not what you want to hit. So something like a Sair close to the ground, you can N-Sig out of that. Someone's trying to jump up. They're a little bit too high HP for it to be an effective string, but you can still cover someone's panic option. And because you jump up so fast, you can steal knockouts where otherwise people think you can't really hit there. And those sidelights, honestly, if there's even one tip that you take away from it, know the dodges that this covered, like I showed. I mean, it's not even just that. You can dodge down and then cover like a dodge down like that, or spot dodge or something like that. Yeah, this covers so many dodges out of your very common strings. Main tip against it is awareness. It doesn't have the most amount of horizontal range, so if you position yourself appropriately, maybe they overshoot it, maybe they undershoot it. So just be very, very aware that this move exists, that they have it in their arsenal, and that they can go for options like the sidelight into N-Sig. Ragnir was a little hard to tell for me, but I think I'm going to give it to this Qatar down sig. This move, you can just snipe out kills that you really should not be getting otherwise, and it's also extremely fast. You can still use it on the stage as a KO option. It's not like the spike becomes useless because it's different in the air and on the ground. Killing on the ground as well, like I mentioned earlier, for Qatars is great, and then it just opens up this whole ledge trapping scenario that other characters on Qatars don't have. It's a very unique to Ragnir situation, the down sig and the N sig. Let me cover you with all of this this pizza cheese in those active frames, or let me throw down the shuriken and just completely snuff out your recovery move. It's incredibly fast. You always have to be aware of it, so that's why I think it's Ragnir's best. My main tip is be very aware of your positioning. Don't use it like right here, because then your opponent can just jump up and Sair you. If you back up even just a little bit, even just a hair, it's going to be that much more difficult because you have that jump, and you're still getting the offstage version. You can still cover them. Also, learn the range of when it becomes on stage and when it becomes off stage, because that's gonna be the difference maker between killing someone at 80 and killing someone at 180. Main tip against it is don't rush. A lot of the time, the moment that you're on the lip of the stage, Ragnir players will go for this, and then if you jump too early, you're gonna get hit by it. But like I mentioned earlier, if their spacing isn't good, you can just jump up and punish them. So be patient, don't rush, and your offstage life will be a lot easier. Rayman's got a bunch to pick from. I mean, the side sig, this distance is absurd, and then the end sig, the distance is also absurd, the KO power is absurd, the recovery power is absurd. Rayman has some of the best sigs in the game, but I think I'm still gonna give it to this down sig, probably like I've done for every single one of these videos that I've made, because it's just so fast and it's just cheese. It's the mega cheese move. I mean, look at this coverage, look at this hitbox. That's crazy, and it's so fast, and you always have to be aware of it when you're playing against a Rayman. Unlike most axe characters, they just can't cover this area with that much threat. I mean, the force is still crazy. This move has been nerfed. I can't even count how many times. Like, it's been nerfed so many times, and it's still just so good. I know I missed it there, but it was for demonstration purposes. Main tip for it is get creative. Of course, everyone knows how to hold it right here and then use it on the lip of the stage, but not everyone will go down and then edge guard and then use it as a GC to interrupt options like that, and then you can just clean up the edge guard. Yeah, get creative with it. Don't think about it as only, oh, I can only use it on the lip right here. You can sometimes even use it on stage as a punish tool, because 26 damage is nothing to scoff at, and then covering the lip. Because you jump up in the air, someone jumping above you will still get hit by it. So think about it like this. Imagine we're off stage, right? This AI is jumping. They're trying to jump above me, but it's okay because I jump above them with the down sig. So take that situation and apply it to off stage now, and it opens up way more opportunities to throw it out. Main tip against it, I mean, I don't know, like Kegel exercises. Just clench. Just clench and be ready, because you know what's gonna happen. If there's anything in this video that doesn't stand the test of time, it'll probably be this one just because Red Raptor is so new, but I think I'm gonna have to give it not to my favorite move of the boot, but the motorcycle. This move is ridiculous. It goes so far, so fast, and it has almost no recovery time whatsoever. The hitbox is incredibly generous, and you can use it out of strings. That little hop that you get at the end continues your momentum onward, so you don't really have to worry about getting frozen in place. It makes it more difficult to punish. It makes it more fluid to use. It means that you can use it right here and then leave on stage. It's so good. I mean, yeah, there's nothing that this move, like, there's no part of it that's bad, really. It's such a strong signature. I really do think it's probably gonna get changed. It has way more KO power than you think, too. Like, it kills pretty, like, look at that, it killed pretty early. I guess damage is the only downside, but with how much utility you get out of it, that's not really an issue. It's not really a problem at all. I mean, look at that. Look at that. Main tip against it, I'm going to avoid saying just learn about the move because he's new, because there's a chance that you watch this video when he's not new. So what I'm going to say is acknowledge that there is this exiting hitbox right here that extends outward outside of the bike. So yes, this hitbox on the bike, it's not the largest. I mean, it's pretty generous, but it's not the largest in front of you. But this exit hitbox is. So be very careful when trying to space outside of it. That is probably going to catch you a lot. Main tip for it, if you miss it, just keep going. Like, they're not going to be able to punish you if you just keep going. You might put yourself in a bad position, but sometimes that's better than getting hit. I mean, sometimes it's not. You gauge the odds, but yeah, sometimes if you're not going to hit it, just keep going. Into the sunset. Reno's Orb Enzig. This is one of my favorite SIGs in the entire game. It is one of the most perfect orb SIGs you could ever have because it covers this vertical area that's really good for ledge trapping, and it sends off stage at this angle. That orb is so good at covering because they have this down air, they have that side air, and then they can cover the wall, and then you can use it as an anti-edge guard like that, and they were far too low for me to even hit that. You can use it out of sidelight if they don't have a dodge as a sidelight Enzig punish tool. Extremely good. The main downside about it is that it freezes your momentum in place. So if you try to dash into it, you're just gonna stop as you use it. So that's the main thing about this move. It's not as fluid as you may like, but it's still so good. Main tip for it is it's so fast that you can use this as like a 50-50 tool. You're approaching your opponent and they're like, oh no, what do I gotta do? I don't want to get hit. Why sidelight? So I'm gonna jump. You cover the jump extremely quickly, and the active frames are so good. I have an entire Reno guide, and I talk about this move for like 40 minutes, so it's extremely good. Main tip against it is not to panic when you're in the corner, because let's say they're trying to edge guard, you're like, oh no, I have to get back, I don't want to get hit by another one of these dares, I don't want to get hit by a Sair, and then you get hit by the Enzig as they're landing. So keep a level head. Where it hits is pretty straightforward, so as long as you have an eye out for it, you're not going to get hit as often. Roland's Sword Down Zig. This move is also extremely underrated. You can see how high it hits in the air, the active frames. It's just really good. I had a hard time deciding between this and the Enzig, but I think it's gotta go to this down sig. Honestly, the more I use it, it's no competition. This move is so fast, the hitbox is so good, it's so generous. Another move that you can GC and extend, that's my main tip for it, is this is crazy. I mean, the range that you get out of this is absurd, and Sword, a weapon like Sword, sometimes this is a safe zone, like this area right here. You're like, oh, I'm gonna approach from here because Enlight can't hit me from there. No, you're gonna get punished with that. So very good. If you're a Roland player, I highly recommend incorporating this into your play. Even in neutral, someone's trying to approach you, you can just completely wall off an area. Roland is a more defensive character, so this is a more defense-oriented SIG, but make no mistake, just because of that doesn't mean that it isn't useful. Main tip against it is be very careful when trying to punish. Like I mentioned, this hitbox extends so far upward, and as the animation goes on, these swords go further and further into the sky. So you might think that you're safe at the start of it, but you're not, because as you're jumping around, these active frames are going to hit you by the very end. Scarlet, I think it's got to be Lance Downsig. I mean, Hammer Downsig has the unbelievable cheese factor, but Lance Downsig in terms of reliability, it's just, I mean, look at this. Like, look at this hitbox. What is this hitbox? And it's a retreating SIG, and it has force and it can kill because Scarlet is a high strength, high power type of archetype character. You can use it as a GC, you can hold it, you can even slide charge it if you want to, like that with momentum. It's just very good. Main tip for it is learn the range, and if you use it even right here, you're covering this ledge very well. The active frames are going to be your best friend here, because even though you might not hit it at the start, if your opponent continues to hold forward, because the smoke lasts for a little while, they're going to get hit by the very end of it. So you can use it further back than you think, and it's going to hit further forward than you think, not just because of the hitbox alone, but because of the interaction between your opponent's movement and the hitbox. And so the main tip against it is the same thing, but in the reverse. Be very careful about moving forward into this smoke hitbox because you think it's over, but it might not be. So just because you're out of range doesn't mean that you'll always be out of range as you continue moving forward. Sentinel's a little hard. I don't know. This might be the first ever time that I've said this, but I think Katar's side sig might be his best sig now. This move got buffed. Its hitbox got like way dramatically increased, and so it's just super strong now. Typically I'd probably say it's this down sig just because of the utility and the damage, but the damage got nerfed, and that was a big part of its power, so I think I'm giving it to this side sig, which it's not the fastest move in the world, but it certainly is a strong one, and now it's got a mega hitbox, and it kills on the ground. Like I mentioned with all these Katar characters, like killing on the ground is great. Look at that power. Look at that power. And because Sentinel isn't played very much, people don't really know how far this extends. But check this out. Ready? I'm going to dash from the very edge of the stage, and look how far that hits. I mean, it's so good. And it really doesn't have that many recovery frames either. It feels really fluid to use, which is another big plus. Yeah, I think I'm going to give it to this one. Main tip for it is that because it does have a decent amount of startup, you do want to use this move primarily as a read tool. So like maybe you're reading that your opponent is going to do a bad landing with an attack on stage. You can do it like that. Maybe you're going to read that they're going to spot dodge, or they're going to dodge outward. You can use it out of a side light. But yeah, you don't necessarily want to use it all the time as like a light attack, like Lucien's, for example. You're not going to get that kind of utility. But yeah, those movement reads, you're just going to destroy with this. Main tip against it is to learn the hitbox. Learn the new range. You might think that you're safe because you got used to it. Maybe you played against some Sentinels a few months ago, but that is no longer the case. It got a hitbox update, so in turn, we must also update our knowledge of this signature. I gotta give it to the cannonball. I mean, this just gives Sidra such a unique option that other cannon characters don't have. It's a projectile, so you can send it out and then you can still attack in the meantime. You can actually get 2 hitboxes out at the same time if you use an look at this coverage. What is this coverage? What is going on there? Off stage, of course, or by the ledge of the stage, I should say, you get so much utility out of it, and it has an active hitbox the entire time it travels. So even if you're right up next to them right there, it'll still hit, which gives you just a lot of freedom to use it. And I kind of missed it there. I'm not a Sidra player, all right, cut me some slack, but that's all right because I still know that you can do something like this where you're getting both of those hitbox out at this, and I keep hitting that F8 button at the same time. I'm sorry for the screen change. Main tip for it is to mix up what you do after using it. A lot of people now are used to this cannonball. They're used to getting hit by the cannonball or dodging the cannonball and then instantly going for an end light like this. But if you start mixing it up, maybe you dash back and they try to punish your incoming end light, or maybe you dash forward, or maybe you just like go for a jump grab, like whatever it is. Mix up your options after going for this cannonball, and your opponent will be so lost. They won't know what to do. And even if you don't hit them, you're still getting a lot of potential stage control out of this, and you can't really go wrong with stage control. Main tip against it is be very careful of the additional explosion hitbox. Yes, it does have a hitbox while traveling, so you can avoid that. That's fine. It won't hit in the air, but then be very careful about this additional burst that it gets at the very end because it does extend further outward than you might think, and it's also more active than you might think. This might be my weirdest one. I just woke up and I'm kind of in a mood, so I thought, why not? If I recorded this video tomorrow, I definitely don't put this, but look at this. Hammer down sig, okay? Hammer down sig. And the reason is that it does 34 damage, and you can string it out of any grounded situation that you really want. Sidelight into downsig, you cover all the dodges, you cover the movement. Now, the main downside is that if you don't hit both, it's only going to do 17, but that's still a hit. I don't know. It's a little wonky, but early HP Taros becomes so much more terrifying because of the sidelight into downsig strings and even just downsig punishes. So I'm going to give it to that. But it was a little bit wonky, so let's do our honorable mentions with this, and let's do our honorable mentions with this, because this is just cheese incarnate, and then this, of course. Yeah, I covered my bases. Main tip for it is learn the dodge punishes and learn the strings, because if you do, you're gonna get so much usage out of this move. Maybe not in every single game, but of the games you do, that's 34 damage. Like, that's crazy. Main tip against it is be very careful of each hitbox. So the hitbox of the first hit is very much like a suction and it just brings you in. So that, yeah, try not to get frustrated if you do get hit by it. It might feel like you shouldn't, but it's just because it kind of looks like a suction. Second hit, it's just way bigger than you might think. I mean, just be very careful. It also hits higher than you might think. If I make this Teska jump up in the air, it's still gonna hit them. I mean, I kind of timed that poorly, but yeah. Look at that. And now on to Teska himself. I think it's still the dunk. The dunk has been nerfed so many times to the point where that didn't even directly kill, but it doesn't even really matter because the move is just so fundamentally good. I mean, this anti-air into just dunk on gauntlets, a dunk on gauntlets, where you can just, yeah, you can just cover someone's jump instantly, and then really not that many recovery frames. You can end light the moment that you hit the ground. You can jump out if you really wanted to. You can jump dodge, and yeah, this move is, it's like a 10 out of 10 sig, and even with the nerfs, it's still super good. And then on top of that, it's an anti-air spiking signature that still has utility on the ground because it has the ground splash. So this is a KO move no matter where you go, no matter where you are, and then Tesca high strength character does a lot of damage. It's just fantastic. It's very hard to react to, so even if you're missing like me, it's okay. And then of course the reversal power of it. Yeah, tip for it is that, I mean, I guess know the distance so that you know when to properly use it off stage. Be careful of not baiting yourself and going too deep so that your opponent is just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to jump away. I'm not going to get hit by this. If you do know the range, it doesn't even matter if you miss, because then you're still making it back to the wall. Main tip against it is if you're edge guarding a Tesca, learn this range because you don't want to accidentally find yourself in a situation where your edge guard becomes their edge guard. Thatch, my boy, my beloved. I'm actually going to start with the honorable mention first, and this is why. That's a true combo. I think that's all I need to say. But for my pick, it's gonna be the sword side sig. And the main reason I can turn the stun off here is the hitbox. Look at this hitbox right here. What is this? Like really, you're like, really, what is that? Look at this opponent jumping. It doesn't matter that they're jumping. This is a side, it's not even an end sig, it's not even an anti-air, but it is an anti-air because that's just the Thatch way. And of course it can kill very early. And then on top of that, I mean, if there wasn't enough, here's my main tip is this string. This string can be very, very good. It can be very, very strong, and it can get very, very early knockouts. So just be careful about that and learn to jump out of that if you want to, and in the situations where it's applicable. And yeah, main tip for it, it's good here. Learn to use the hitbox. And let's say, okay, actually another tip, because I like Thatch so much, you get two. If someone's trying to jump back on stage, because this has such a big hitbox, you don't even necessarily need to guess where exactly they're going to land, because if you use it in the right spot, you can cover every single option they have. Not like me, because I'm terrible, but yeah, if you use it in the right spot, they're just doomed no matter where they go. And also, you can do that, so do that. Well, I flipped a coin, and if it was heads, it was this, and if it was tails, it was this, and it was tails. So we're talking about the down sig. The main thing about this move, look at that range. I mean, it's not the most damage because Theo doesn't do the most damage, and if you use it off stage like here, you're not going to show the full range, so why am I doing that? I don't know. But look at that range. I mean, like, it's absurd. It's crazy. You're going... I have a screenshot. One of my videos, if you look at my list of my videos, there's a screenshot of where it hits from where you're standing. That's a real screenshot, so... I don't know. It's just the range is so good, and then the speed, and then it's very difficult to punish as well on top of that. And a KO option on the ground for Lance is great. It's a reversal signature, which is always nice. You can use it to recover back on the ledge if you want to. You can hit the wall like that. You can cover someone's outward movement. You can hold it after the first hit and then cover their inward movement. I mean, check this out. I mean, you're still gonna be able to hit that from back there. Very, very good move. Main tip for it is to incorporate it into your movement reads and all that. And of course, it still hits stacked if you want to do that, because yeah, and then it kills early if you're hitting it off stage because it is a reversal. Main tip against it, be very careful of this horizontal range like I've been hinting at. If they use it like this, I mean, I don't know why I keep showing that, but it's just a little goofy tech. I love me some goofy tech like this, for example, where you get stuck on the wall if you hold horizontally, and then you don't get stuck on the wall if you don't hold horizontally. Anyway, learn the range, punish it from above, get some Lunchables. 4 is a tricky one. I really want to say it's this hammer side sig. This move, I mean, honorable mention, I guess, right off the bat. But I'm going to give it to the orb end sig just because of the sheer utility and the hitbox and the range and the safety that you get just jumping up so high, the recovery power, the ability to stall and recover from where you really, really shouldn't. And yeah, part of what makes this move so good is the priority is absurd, and the hitbox as you're jumping up is way bigger than you think. Yes, it doesn't hit vertically, or it doesn't hit grounded rather, but it hits pretty much ground. If there's anything that even lifts them off the ground, even a tiny little bit, it's still gonna hit. It's and then the active frames, and yeah, it's funny. And also, M. Bison's sounds really goofy, and that just gives it a boost in my mind because I love goofy. Main tip for it is don't be too obvious using this to recovery like that, but if you do mix it up into your play, maybe you get knocked off stage, you can use it immediately right off the bat. That way your dodge cooldown will still be back by the time you have to recovery again or dodge again. So don't be too obvious using it off stage. And main tip against it is definitely learn the range, because if you know exactly where this hits, then you can ground pound them if it's their final option. I'm starting to lose my voice a little bit, so apologies if these last few don't get the attention that the others did, but I don't think this one even necessarily needs it because it's very straightforward. It's the Ulgrim Axe down sig. Little neat tech there. It can actually spike if you didn't know that. But yeah, it's just so good, and it's so quick on a character that has such low dex. Having a sig that's this quick is incredible. And yeah, I mean, it's very straightforward. Main tip for it is that you can use it to dash and punish and dodge punish, and you can do like a sidelight end it, and then you can reverse it and get a spike like this much easier. Yeah, it's incredibly powerful. Main tip against it, it's kind of similar to the ones that I was talking about earlier, where pay attention to their movement. I believe it was Koji bow down sig, where a lot of the time when people are looking for this, they'll show it in their movement. They'll start going like this, and then they'll dash in and use it, or they'll space like just outside the dash range, and then the moment that you enter that range, they're just gonna do it. So pay attention to their movement, pay attention when people tend to like to use this move, and then be very careful about getting spiked. Not that a lot of people go for this, but it will steal your games away. So try not to get upset if it happens to you. Honorable mention goes to this side sig, which sometimes is gonna have ludicrous force and kill way too early. It is slow, so that's part of why, but yeah, this move can be very good. Val Sword End Sig. This is another one of these that it hits on the ground and it's an anti-air. It's extremely fast. The hitbox goes very high. It's super straightforward, but don't let that straightforwardness deceive you. This is extremely good, especially like that if someone's trying to dodge in off stage or from off stage, because it's also pretty safe. Even if you miss it, it's not a huge deal. And then the hitbox, the benefit you get out of it is massive, especially on a weapon like sword. Covering that exact area can be difficult, because what do? I mean, you have jump dare, you have jump falling there, you have jump falling recovery to cover that exact area, or you could just end sig. And so that covers all of that, and it's way faster. Main tip for it is this move really benefits the most if you have movement reads on your opponent. So pay attention to how your opponent's moving, when they like to dash in, when they like to jump in, dodge in, all of that kind of stuff. And also don't get too frustrated if it doesn't kill the earliest. It doesn't have the most amount of force, and Val is not the highest strength character, so it might not kill the earliest, but all the utility you get out of it more than makes up for it. So don't worry about that, and I won't worry about the fact that I missed both of those sword stairs when I was hitting them off the stage. Main tip against it is to learn the exact height that Val is left when she ends this move, because it's a little bit of an awkward position, it's a little bit of an awkward height, and then they can just cover themselves with a falling there like that. So if you do learn that exact position, it's going to be way easier to punish, as opposed to, this is just a general anti-air that I can cover. It's a little bit awkward because of this steep angle. Vector bow down sig. This is another one of these 10 out of 10 signatures. It's literally everything you could ever want out of a bow sig. It is so good. You can use it out of a sidelight, you can punish dodges, you can even just use it to dash and cover people's options and cover the ledge like this. The active frames are phenomenal. It's a 10 out of 10 move. Vector, part of why Vector is strong is because of this singular move. Of course he has others, but this more than makes up for any other possible bow weaknesses he could have. And yeah, main tip for it, use it out of your dodge punish options, your dodge punish setups. Use it to cover landings, and you can even, I don't know, even if you miss it, you can cover dodge ins like that. And if you use it on the ledge, people jumping in, maybe they still get hit by the second side of it. So good. Main tip against it is just lock in Vector for a little bit. Use it so you understand the strength, you understand the recovery frames, and then you know how safe it is or how dangerous it is to use it in different situations. And then when you're on the other side, you're like, oh, okay, I can't punish it here. Let's just give up on this punish. Let's punish the next thing. Or, oh, I know I can punish it here because Vector is stuck for X amount of time. Volkov, it's a little hard to choose, but I think I'm giving it to the Scythe side sig. This move, okay, if you hold it forward, you get a spike. So that's like one of the greatest utilities in the game, is spiking. But if you don't hold it, you get a reversal, which is the other of one of the greatest utilities in the game. So you've got two of the best options in one signature, and the hitbox is great, and it's fast, and it's just very straightforward. You know exactly how to use it, you know exactly when to use it. Your momentum carries. It's perfect for slide charging and confirming kills. It's great in twos. Not that this video has had anything to do with twos really, but that's an additional bonus out of it. Yeah, this move is extremely powerful, and if you're against a Volkov, you always have to be aware of it, which I think that's pretty explanatory as to why it's so good, is that if you always have to be careful about getting spiked off the map or getting reversed off the map from anywhere, it is very, very strong. Main tip for it, learn the hitbox. That's the biggest thing. If you learn the hitbox, you're gonna get so much benefit out of it. This is one of those moves that, if you know when to use it, you know where it's powerful. It's just such a monster. It really is. I mean, a spike like this, a reversal like this, like I said, utility is king with Volkov, so that's really great. Main tip against it is not to panic when you get spiked, because the spike doesn't have the most amount of force, and then you're getting put into a situation where you're getting edge guarded by Scythe, and you're panicking, you're like, I don't want to get edge guarded by Scythe, Scythe will just kill me anyway, I'm dead the moment they get hit by it. But if you're calm, if you're patient, you know, maybe you're not dead. Maybe you still have options to go for. Maybe you still have a second chance at life. Lord Vrax, blasters down. Say, look at the range. I love this move. This is one of my favorite moves in the game to use. It is so fun because look at that range and the explosion. Look at the hitbox and look at the active frames of this explosion. Okay, ready? That's ginormous. That's ginormous, and then it's active for so long, so you don't even have to be that accurate with it, you know. And then even if you miss it, you're still quite a distance away. And what are blasters good at? They're good at range. So yeah, this move is incredibly powerful. No other blasters character has a sig like this that they can use in positions that Vrax can. So you just have to play against Vrax completely different. You always have to keep this in mind. Number one tip for Vrax players is to start incorporating this into your play in a way that's different than you might think. Because like I mentioned, every other blasters character doesn't have an option like this, so you don't need to think about it. But the moment that you lock in Vrax, you have access to this, so you can position yourself in spots that you might not have even considered previously. Main tip against it is if you're trying to punish it, diagonals are your friend, like a bow dare, for example, or an orb dare, or a lance dare, anything that lets you not be in this giant horizontal range and you can still approach it from above. That's your best friend. Wushang, Spear Side Sig. This is just the classic. I mean, this Sig has probably been his best ever since he was released. It's been nerfed a bunch of times, but it's still super good. It's on the ground, on spear, it kills early, its hitbox is generous, it's fast, you can't really react to the startup, and even though its recovery time has been nerfed, it's still not the easiest move in the world to punish. Just all around, another one of these perfect signatures for the spear kit, and it really goes hand in hand with this end sig, which is the honorable mention, because if you're trying to avoid this vulnerable grounded space, then you're going to be left wide open for this vertical space. It's a really dangerous synergy. Main tip for it is going to be the opposite of a lot of other sigs. Because it's been nerfed, a lot of people think they can use it all willy-nilly where they could before, but you can't. It got some more recovery frames. It's not the safest in the world, although it still is pretty safe. So don't just use it haphazardly, but I mean, a lot of the situations where it was good before, it's still going to be good now. Not the end of the world, just have to be a tad more careful. Main tip against it is you just gotta know that it's coming. You just gotta know that the Wushang player is gonna look for it, and while you're in kill percent, stay out of this range or put them in positions where they don't want to go for it, where it's risky. Make sure your movement is solid, make sure you're not being too obvious, and it's just inevitable. You're gonna get hit by it, I'm gonna get hit by it. You just want to minimize the number of situations where that happens. For Zol, I'm saying it's the cannon Ensig. This move, not only does it deal a billion damage because it's Zol, it kills so early because it's Zol, but then it's also surprisingly fast, even though it's Zol. And it covers those jumps, the hitboxes is so generous. Yeah, this move, especially on a weapon like cannon, which people are afraid of recovering against cannon because they have this and it'll knock you back off stage. They're going to jump up high. This catches that jump up high. And on a map like Small Brawlhaven, this can kill in like mid-orange. And if you're by the ledge, it's going to kill in light orange. So extremely good move. I'm going to give the honorable mention as well to this down sig. It's really hard to choose between the two. This is another one of these that I literally just coin flipped. This move is also just so good. I mean, another one of these incredible hitbox. It's like Sir Roland's, but you have to charge it up. And I already gave Sir Roland the best on his kit, so of course this move is really good as well. It's a total 50-50. These two are good in different situations for different reasons. But yeah, ask me next week and I say it's the down sig, but I just felt like talking about the end sig today. Main tip for it is don't fall into the trap of going for this every single time. It is sometimes good to catch your opponent off guard. Maybe they don't think you're going to go for it, and it's a nice little unexpected cheese. But if you go for it every single time, people are just going to be ready. Main tip against it is not to panic jump and make your panic jumps obvious, because then they're just going to throw it out and they're going to snipe your stock away. Yumiko, it's got to be the hammer down sig. I mean, yes, the hammer end sig is incredible, hammer side sig is great, but no other move transforms her kit like this. No other move transforms a hammer kit like this. Yumiko has a wholly unique hammer because of this down sig. It's a full-on utility sig. It does hit on the ground, so you can combo it off the ground if you want. It's just area denial. Your opponent can't enter this zone. You've zoned them out effectively, and it really doesn't have that much recovery time either. So, you know, let's say they avoid it, or let's say they don't approach when you want them to. That's still totally fine, because even if you use it right here, you're not left stuck for really any time at all. And if your opponent is very, very jumpy, whoops, that is it's just great to make them regret ever wanting to enter this entire jumping area. Main tip for it is exactly what I said for Sidra. Mix up what you're doing after it. A lot of the time people just throw this out and they're like, oh, the opponent is going to want to dash forward, so I'm just going to go for this, or I'm just going to go for this. But if you start mixing it up, you start going for wacky, wild options. Like you're dashing around. You're like, oh, I'm going in. No, I'm not. That suddenly becomes a situation where your opponents have no idea what to do. I still feel like this is one of the most underutilized SIGs in the entire game. The ceiling is so incredibly high, and I don't think it's nearly been reached yet. So if you are a Yumiko player, take advantage. If you're playing against this SIG, then the number one ally on your side is patience. Waiting these orbs out, or waiting out the stage control that you lost, or even waiting out what the Yumiko is going to do afterwards and paying attention, noticing her habits. You know, maybe she does always go for the same options every single time after using that. That's going to be how you play around this. And finally, we've got Zyro. Now, they've got some incredible signatures. Another character where I have an entire video dedicated to just one move. I'm going to give it, though, to this side sig. You could see right there, I should have missed that, but it still hit. And I'm sure you're familiar with this move as well. This is one of the easiest to use SIGs in the entire game, especially on a weapon like Gauntlets, killing on the ground right here with this extra range. Gauntlets, you got to be up close and personal, but this gives you a whole projectile frisbee discus. It's fantastic. Active frames are great. The kill power is surprisingly good because you also move forward alongside it. Catches jumps. Hitbox is fantastic. One of the best SIGs in the game for sure. Main tip for it, I mean, just learn really how to use it. Learn the range, learn the speed, learn what you can punish, learn where you can punish, punishing landings, punishing edge guards, and yeah, it is so incredibly good. And this is going to be one of your best friends if you're struggling to knock out. Main tip against it, number one, is not to get frustrated. This move will hit you, and it will hit you where you think it shouldn't, because it is a projectile and it kind of suctions you in, similar to like I was mentioning with Taros earlier. So number one, don't get frustrated. Number two, learn the range. Number three, you can punish it from above. Well, that's about it though. More than anything, this is just an educational tool, so I hope it was helpful. I hope it was informative, and I'm sure you disagree, but that's totally fine. Just know that it really hurts my feelings.